Is trading real? Is this something that you can actually make money from, or is everyone lying? You can literally get to 10K a month in a very short space of time, and that's why trading is an amazing thing. But should everyone be a trader?
You've spoken to many traders, yeah, on your podcast, and I'm sure you would have spoken to more traders off camera as well. How can you tell who's legit and who's not?
He told me to my face. He sat there like this, like opposite each other, and he said to me, all these accounts are fake. He faked a withdrawal. He even told me he doesn't trade. He doesn't like trading. It just turned out to be just faking it. Being those typical people that people are worried about on social media. Right?
They're scamming their own audience.
The real way how they're making the money though, or how they're doing this, even the people so-called trading, they're not even trading. They literally just have
and effort right there. But I want to break something down you just said. That you said you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I'd ask you why. What is it about entrepreneur life at the time that was interesting to you?
I think it was the chance of doing more, right? I never wanted to just live a 9-to-5, and I know a lot of people say that, right? And it can sound like anti 9-to-5 or like a 9-to-5 is wrong. It's not wrong. It's just I wanted to do more. I wanted to be able to live a better life, to live a bit more of a freer life, to be able to do things on my own terms, and to not be able to ask about, if I can go on holiday or to go to the bathroom, for a lunch break or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to live on my own terms. I want to be able to provide that freedom to my family, and not only like say my kids or my wife, but also to my mom and my siblings and even my wife's family, for example. The only way to do that isn't going to happen through a job. Even if I get a 6-figure salary job, I'm not going to be able to do that. Now, another thing that I had to learn there was the reality of that sort of goal is actually way bigger than you would assume, right? That to be able to try and look after that many people is a lot higher than just say a few million, let's say.
Yeah, sure.
But that was the reason, because I wanted to actually have that level of freedom. I still didn't understand at the time what that actually takes though. The level of income you would have to create, or the level of business or entrepreneurship that you'd have to get to. Not just a very simple or very naive idea that I used to have.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing with anything, I think that literally the secret to success, if you will, is just starting. Just start, and then just stay consistent with starting and keep at that one thing. Because I can't tell you the amount of people, not only from trading or from my family or friends, who tell me all the time, I want to do this thing. And they might even start it. Like most don't. They just keep saying, right? And this is the majority of people, unfortunately. And then they will start. Some will start. But then they will only start for a month, 2-3 months. And then they don't see the traction or the results they want to see yet. Then they stop. And then they just repeat that cycle over and over.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous mindset or place to be in, because like I said, the secret to success, in my opinion, is literally just take action, but consistently take action. And the way to go about that though is to do something you enjoy. So the podcast, I enjoy it. Trading, I enjoy it. So that's why they're probably the only two things that I've actually done long term, and you don't worry about the results then. You're not looking at the results, especially when there aren't any results. Like the podcast, for example, like when you started, no doubt, it's probably the same thing. Like couple hundred views or 1,000 views, and that's just consistently happening. But you're doing good episodes. You feel really good about an episode, but it does the same thing. But then it's the momentum, right? And then once that momentum builds up, it's like the snowball at the top of the hill. It starts to roll and get bigger and bigger, and that momentum continues. And look where you are today. Look where I am today. And it's just a testament to just consistent action.
You yourself seem very extroverted, and you're very outgoing. You can make the podcast host, the guest, feel like they're at home. So just that little element there, have you always been an extrovert, or were you the quieter person in school growing up? What was it like for you?
It's a very good question, actually, because we laugh about this all the time, me and my friends. I'm actually super introverted. Like, I don't know how to describe it. If someone knows me, I'm very extroverted. I'm very like bubbly, laughing loud, and all sorts of crazy jokes and all sorts. But if you don't know me, or I don't know a person, I'm the last person to go up to a stranger and talk to them. I'm the last person to sort of ask for directions. I'd rather just pull out my phone or like just avoid interaction.
I'm smiling because I'm exactly the same. Literally exactly the same.
It must be a thing with like podcasters. I don't know. Like, we're great for doing the job.
But off camera,
exactly,
we're not chatting to you.
Exactly. But again, it's not like because we don't want to. It's just like, it's just really awkward. I was in New York in December, and I went into a lift with my family, and this guy was like, "Words of wisdom, how's it going?" And I was like, and literally I just go all quiet because I'm like, I don't know what to say. And they're asking me questions, and that's absolutely fine. And I'm answering the questions, but I'm answering it with like way less energy than I probably would if it was like a friend or something. But no, it's great to hear, because sometimes when it comes to the podcast, sometimes I have people on who may not been on camera before ever, and they're very, very nervous. And I try my best to like just say, look, we're just talking about trading. Like, we're just talking about things you do every single day. Like, I know these lights can be quite bright and there's cameras there, but just ignore them. We're just having a conversation, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, they're still a bit nervous, which I understand, because if they've never done it before, then it can be a bit daunting. And
Yeah.
we I think we probably both forget that, you know, we actually have a very large audience. While to us, it might not feel it because we've kind of grown with it. To someone who's never done anything before, they come onto a platform that's got 100,000 plus people
Yeah,
they're watching.
they're just like, oh my God, like, I've got to be prepared for this. The spotlight's on me.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting there, like, as you said, we've grown with it. So we still have the same feeling from when we started. It hasn't really changed. You said there earlier that you discovered trading at the same point as where you started the shop, right? So what made you come across trading? How did you come across it? And what was your thoughts about it from the get-go?
Definitely. So like with trading, it was very interesting because before I used to do all sorts of jobs. Like I did go to university. So I just did jobs, like sales jobs. Sales jobs was the main sort of jobs that were helpful in terms of making income without a degree.
You seem like the type of guy that definitely worked at Vodafone.
I didn't work at Vodafone. No, I did. I did telesales though. I worked at Talk.
Okay,
similar, not far.
Yeah.
Not far. Which is a whole different story. That place was a wild place.
Yeah.
Sales jobs are incredible in terms of like the skill sets you learn, but they're extremely ruthless. But I've always recommended to people who don't go to university, but they want to get into a job that will teach them skills, but also make good money from.
Yeah.
Sales is the only one.
Exactly the same thing I recommend as well. I always say to people, get yourself in a sales retail job and that will build up your skill set. But yeah, sorry, continue.
No, but like it's so true though, but you have to be ready for the ruthless environment. That's the thing. So it's similar to entrepreneurship though. Sales is like a test, I believe, for entrepreneurship, because if you can't handle a sales environment, you're never going to handle what it's going to take to be an entrepreneur or a successful person like that. But yeah, in terms of finding trading, so I used to work in a taxi office, like doing booking the calls. It's called D&G Cars in Nottingham. And I'd sit there and I'd do that. But one of the guys who worked there with me at the time, because I was like 18 at the time, or 17, 18 at the time. Years later, I bumped into him and his lifestyle had increased, right? He suddenly had a nice car, he was going on holiday, he had like this apartment where he just had like, for the boys, just games and all sorts. So I just asked him, and I knew him, he's a very humble guy, still to this day, to this day I bump into him all the time. And I might be hosting a trading meetup or be with like a trading guest. And whenever I see him, I say like, oh, that's the guy who got me into trading. And he runs off.
Oh, is it?
He doesn't like it. Yeah, he runs off because he doesn't like it. And I've asked him to come on the pod, but he's like, no.
Okay, so you haven't had him on the podcast?
I've not had him on the pod.
That would be such a sick podcast,
I know. But like I said, he's so humble and just so like private and just does his thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I respect him so much, because I would never ask someone usually like, what do you do? But because I worked with him and I knew him, he was a good friend of mine. I was like, I have to ask you, like, what do you do? Like, when we started, I was here. We were both here. Now you're there.
Now you're all the way up,
I'm still like just here.
Yeah.
And he said, I trade Forex. And at the time, it was gibberish to me. I'd never heard of trading. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I said, what is that? And he goes, I trade the euro versus the dollar. I trade Japanese yen versus this, and gold. I trade gold. And I was just like, when I heard that, it sparked in my head, like, this is what I want to do. I don't know why. It was just like, this is what I want to do. This sounds like something I would love to do.
As he was explaining it, did you understand it?
No. Okay. I understood the concept of it, in terms of like, okay, you do something with the euro and the yen, but it was just literally when he was describing it in that way, it was kind of like just, that was the moment of like, this is it. This is the thing that I'm going to learn and I'm going to master. And it just sounds like something I would love, because I'm into numbers anyway. And trading I'd never heard of, but that was the thing. So then he gave me, at this point, you can imagine all of his friends were asking, like, what do you do, man? Like, I want to get involved. So he sent me to this free website to like just get general information. It's called babypips.com. It's like the OG website, if you will, of the trading realm. And then, so I went there, but it's very terminology dense, like so heavy on terminology. So went there. Tried to go through that. Then I went back to him and said, where did you go? And he sent me to a course, and the course he did. So I went to that course, and that was the start of my journey. And literally the course, the funny thing is that course I did was probably a month into the shop.
Okay, so a month into the shop then.
Yeah.
So doing this course then, how was that like for you? Successful or?
Well, it's an interesting story, because the guys who ran that course are now, they're still around, which is the sad bit, but they have turned out to be not very good guys. At the time, you can imagine, I looked up to them and they were the first course I ever came across. So I never really put them down in that sense, because at the end of the day, I knew nothing anyway. So I did learn something, but it wasn't for the price of it. At the time, it makes sense because it wasn't, this was 2016. So there wasn't really as much, about trading online. Like it was probably them and one other people. So they could charge what they wanted. So that's fair. Okay. But in terms of if you were to compare it now or just compare the price to the knowledge, it didn't really sync up. But again, I can't speak negatively at that time because it was the only thing I knew.
Yeah, you didn't have much experience in it otherwise.
Exactly. But yeah, over the years, I ended up working for those guys later. And yeah, they just turned out to be, just faking it, being those typical people that people are worried about. on social media of just faking, everything on the social media side, but behind the scenes, they're just not doing it.
Is this the same group you was telling me about on WhatsApp?
Exactly. Oh, it depends. There's a couple of groups we were talking about.
Yeah.
This one was Amin Nat, so it's called Astro Effects at the time. They're gone now, which is good, but Amin Nat unfortunately is still out and about doing his thing. But yeah, like I went there, like I said, it was a good experience to begin with because I didn't know anything, so it felt like a good experience. But there wasn't no aftercare. So for the price I paid, a couple £1,000, being early 20s at the time, that's a lot of money. But there was no aftercare or anything. It was literally you go there, you do your thing, and then if you want to ask questions and stuff, non-existent. And yeah, so that was my experience getting into it. And then from there, it was kind of, this is the interesting thing. So like I did the course, but then the first year or two, I didn't really put as much effort in as you meant to. I wasn't being consistent.
Yeah.
I kind of just thought, okay. And I said to myself the wrong mindset as well of like, I'm willing to do this for long term. That's what I said. And you'd probably think like, why'd you say wrong mindset? Because long term in my head was a year.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I was like, if I dedicate a year to this, right,
you'll be rich.
Yeah, exactly. That's a long time.
Yeah.
But the reality I found from the podcast, and that's the beauty of the podcast as well, it's like a collection of everyone's journey. And the average seems to be, and not saying that this is the amount of time to be rich, right? But the average to begin to start seeing results seems to be roughly around 3 years. Now that might speed up now because of the amount of information out there, etc. But 3 years, right? That's not even a long time in comparison. That's about a uni degree.
What results are we talking about though? Are we talking about trading success, or are we talking about results in terms of lifestyle?
So results in the trading success,
Okay.
right? So like starting to see consistency, starting to make money consistently. So rather than just losing or kind of being break even, so you're not really making anything or losing anything. So starting to see consistency, that seems to be, and that was what it was for me, 3.5 years. And I lost a lot of money in trading that I didn't need to because I just threw money at trading. Because it's a very delicate line with trading, right? It's a profession. It's a real thing. It is something you can make money from. Because one of the biggest questions I get is trading real? Like even from people who've been doing it for a year or two, like they'll ask, is it real? Is this something that you can actually make money from, or is everyone lying? That's a valid question. And it's unfortunate because there are people lying.
Yeah.
But it's a valid question to ask because the beauty I had was that I had that friend. So I had an example of someone who had done it. So most people don't have that. Most people just kind of find it online and then they're by themselves trying to learn, and therefore they don't have any examples. So then it's easy to question it. But it is real. But it takes that time, and it takes, more importantly, the action, consistent action to do it. So my first year, probably year and a half, I didn't really put any actions in. I was just there pretending I was trading, like just like, I'll buy here, I'll sell here.
Yeah.
When in reality, I had to take time to really learn the details. Basically go through a degree on my own though, right? Like to put in the work as if I was doing a degree to learn that. And like I said, the fine line, just to finish that off, is it can be a gambling, right? If you don't know what you're doing, and that year and a half, I was just gambling because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just buying or selling randomly with no knowledge, with no risk management, with no plan. And that's gambling, right? However, if you put your knowledge together and you put the actions in, you have a system, you have an edge. Now you're not gambling because you're using an actual edge based on data that you've taken from the market to trade. So there is a distinction there because a lot of people do talk about that as well. Like, is trading gambling or not? And the reality is, if you have no knowledge and you don't know what you're doing, of course that is gambling. But it's like a poker player, right? A poker player who, if I went to play poker, I have no idea how to play poker. So I would be gambling, right? Versus the professional poker player who sits at the table, has a system, has an edge, understands what he's trying to do. He's not a gambler, right? He's a professional. That's why he plays on the league. He's on TV playing those games. So there is that difference. And I think a lot of people don't understand that.
So I'm going to ask you this question here. I was going to bring it up later, but we're on the topic of it, about the gambling and, trading. Are you open to have the conversation about trading? Obviously, you're Muslim, right?
Yeah.
So are we open to have the conversation about trading being halal or haram sort of thing?
Of course, yeah.
And
so for me, like, I'm not very knowledgeable in terms of like the Islamic side of things, like the rulings, but I'm happy to try and give my perspective anyway.
But the reason why I'm asking is because we were literally, me and a couple of friends, we were out in Medina literally last week, and we were having this conversation about trading and stuff, about if it's haram or halal. One of the brothers here, my cousin, he's also does trading as well. He was saying it's halal. One of the other boys was saying no, but like you don't know, no one can say whether it's going up or down, so it's gambling. Mm-hmm. And then the question, I know this sounds like a very stupid question, but it was like, if a professional poker player knows what he's doing and he's no longer classed as gambling because he's analysing everything, all that sort of stuff, is that now deemed as not gambling, and therefore, I know this is going to sound stupid, I don't agree with it at all, but he was saying, is that now deemed as halal? Because you're not gambling at that point if you're a professional. So same aspect to trading, though in the beginning it can seem as gambling, but as you become a professional, you can, you know, put your knowledge in it, your analysis and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, even with all of that, what do you believe? Still, is it halal?
So me personally, I haven't like tried to research it. I'm not someone who, I see why people do. Like some people are very strong with their beliefs and they want to know. They need to have a yes or no answer from someone else to tell them, you know, should they do that or not. And I respect that a lot. And I definitely think that it should be something that you don't take lightly in terms of trading, because it is so easy to lose a lot of money in trading. Right? And a lot of people do lose a lot of money in trading. But a lot of the time, why are they losing that money? It's normally because they're throwing money at something that they don't actually understand yet. And I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, here's a loophole. Because there's no such thing as like loopholes or stuff. It's either a yes or no, right? And trading wise, if you learn the knowledge and you have an edge, you can be profitable. What deems that profitability though? Because anyone could build an edge, right? Anyone could, you know, learn strategies and learn about the markets, have their risk management so they know what they're risking per trade, etc., right? All the technical aspect of trading. They could learn all of that, but still not make money. Why? Because of their discipline, right? Because of their actions as a human being. So it really does come down to the individual. Now, there is, interestingly, I had someone on the podcast who brought their imam on to talk about this whole halal, haram.
They brought their imam on?
Yeah, they brought him on the pod. And what that person said was like, you know, trading with a personal account, and again, they basically said it's a loophole, but trading with your personal account is not halal because you don't own the contract.
This is Zaki.
Yes, exactly.
I saw the clip on Instagram. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, again, he said that you don't own the contracts. There are swap fees, which is essentially what people class as interest, and you're using leverage. So then that personal trading is haram. But there are things now called prop firms, which is all demo and simulated, so it's not real money. And therefore he said it's a loophole because it's not real money. There is no money on the line. So yeah, you may pay a fee to do these challenges, and there's that money, but that's just a small fee. But then in terms of withdrawals and how you make profits, it's all based on simulated, and therefore that's a loophole, he was essentially saying. Now, I personally don't agree with trying to find a loophole. I don't think that you need to. Like, you just base it off your beliefs, right? So the way I see it is we're in a whole different age now, right? And like my understanding in terms of interest is that, let's say we go back to 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, when these rulings were made, people who were loaning money at the time were loan sharks, right? So rather than me going to what is now a bank or, you know, a broker now for trading, that didn't exist, right? This sort of trading didn't exist. It was more commerce that was available. So I trade maybe gold for something that I wanted to buy off you, or I would trade a camel for something that you own, maybe one of your houses or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
So it's a whole different world, right? But my understanding is that obviously interest was made haram because of the aggressiveness of loan sharks. So like, let's say I take £1,000 off you, right? But instead of you saying, okay, I'm going to pay £1,000 back, I'm saying, no, I want 100% back.
Yeah, so you want 2 bags back.
Exactly.
$2,000, yeah.
Right? And therefore, that's taking advantage of the situation. And I understand that. I don't agree with that too. But essentially, like how a mortgage works, or like with these swap fees, for example, that are interest in the trading realm, if I want to take £1,000 off you, but I say to you, before you take it though, I say, okay, you know, take this £1,000, but for me lending it you, I need to make some money on that money. So I'm going to charge you 2% on that, or even 5%, let's say. Quite a fair amount, 5%. So when you give it me back, you're going to give me that and 5%. It's agreed upon. You know, you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. That's it.
Signed before money's even taken out.
Exactly. So in my eyes, that is a completely legitimate business deal. It's not, no one's being taken advantage of. That person didn't have £1,000 before. Now you have £1,000. But for doing so, I just want to make some money on that, because why should I give you that money for free?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, when people talk about like swap-free accounts, so it's an interest-free accounts to make it Sharia compliant, or Islamic mortgages, it's all a trick anyway, because all you do is they just don't take interest payments per month, and they just have a balloon payment at the end.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's the exact same thing. So it's just it just has a title on it.
Yeah, I've seen it in halal car finance companies. What they do is they just put the interest in the cash price of the car.
Yeah.
So rather than saying, you know, the cash price of the car is £60,000, and by the time in the end you're going to pay £10,000 in interest, they just say, okay, cool, the car is now £70,000, 0% interest, but it's in that 70 grand.
Exactly.
It's a 10 grand interest in that cash price, which is the loophole they try and find to say, we are now halal, sort of thing.
Exactly. You have to do the right thing. So I spent time learning, right? Learning about the markets, learning the different technical aspects, right? Learning a strategy. learning about the trade management. Whilst I was doing this though, I was saving.
So was you doing all of this with a demo account, demo money?
Afterwards, yeah. So whilst I was learning, all on demo. And this is what I was going to say. So like, it's never been easier to be a trader. And I would say one of the easiest things you can do to make 10K a month, for example, is be a trader. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, people hear that, they get really annoyed. They're like, easy, trading. They don't go match up. And I get that. What I mean by that is that, like, if you want to go into e-commerce, for example, or you want to start a podcast, for example, or you want to, what else is there? Like, I don't know, do copywriting, or you want to do a social media agency.
Many
all these
different
aspects,
many different fields.
Exactly. They take money, they take clients, they take having staffs a lot of the time,
Yeah.
they take equipment, etc. Trading doesn't require any of that.
Apart from a laptop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A laptop or even just a phone,
Yeah.
right? And Wi-Fi. That's all it needs, right? And there will be a little bit of capital injection at some point, but to begin with and to build the skill set, you need absolutely nothing. In today's day and age, when I started that, I couldn't say that. Now you have all the information you could possibly need on YouTube, right? For free. So all the different strategies, every different strategy under the sun in detail on YouTube for free. You have prop firms now as well. So that's another big thing that people used to say is that capital. You need tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands to make money from trading. But now you have these evaluation firms. And evaluation firms, to really keep it brief, is you just, once you have a skill set, and that's a very important point, like once you've gone through the learning using demo accounts, so where you basically can trade the actual markets with no money, right? As if it's live, but without using any money, right? So you can get a demo account of, say, 50K, 100K, no money, right? But you can practice, you can build your skill set, build your confidence. And there is a huge difference between obviously the simulated and real money, of course, but that comes later anyway, when you're ready. That's the main bit, when you're ready. Most people, like I said, like I did, throw money at it. But the evaluation firms, once you have that skill set, you pay a small fee, and depending on the account size. So on average, 100K account size is about £500. They give or take. And then you take the challenge, as in you show your skill set. Right, so you have normally a 2-phase. So phase 1, you might have to make X percentage per in what now it's unlimited days as well. It's gotten even easier. It used to be limited days, so it's unlimited days. And then phase 2, same thing. And then you get a funded account, which then basically means that whatever profits you make on that, you will get a profit split, and you can make that capital, and you get a refund on the fee that you paid on the £500.
Oh, is it? You get a refund on that as well? Okay, yeah.
So don't get me wrong. Again, same principle. People can easily throw money at that model.
Yeah.
Right. But this is where it comes down to the individual. You control yourself, right? You learn the skill set for free. You go through this process, and then you go and take one of these challenges. You can literally get to 10K a month in a very short space of time, in a very easy manner, meaning you haven't had to go capital, put loads of capital in. You haven't had to hire anyone. You haven't had to find staff. You haven't had to find clients to try and service and trying to make that 10K a month. And that's why trading is an amazing thing. But should everyone be a trader? No.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this off the back of that then. As you said there, being a trader is one of the easiest ways to make 10K a month. Now, do you think to the general public, that's why it may be deemed as a get-rich-quick scheme from the way it's marketed as that easy way to make money?
Definitely. No, definitely. I think, like, even for me, I would say easiest way to make 10K a month, but I won't put a time scale on that. Like I said, on average from the podcast, 3 years, 3.5 years. Can that be shortened? Yes. Are there people who may have done it maybe in a year? 100%. But you have to look at the average, not the enigmas, like the few people who, the LeBron James or the Ronaldos. You can't look at them and say that's what everyone does, right?
Yeah.
You have to look at the average. What does the average person do? Right? What does the average successful trader look like? And what sort of time frame are they working with?
How can you tell who's legit and who's not? What's the telltale signs to someone who doesn't trade, someone not in the industry who's looking to go into it? How do you tell who's legit and who's not? Like, what's the main signs?
The main signs is, like, are they showing the reality of trading? So they might be able to say to you, hey, I make this much money a month, let's say, or I make this much this year. And it might sound like a lot, and it probably is a lot. But are they also saying to you, it took me this long to get here. It was this hard to do this. These were the challenges that I faced to do this. A prime example is, a guest you've had on before, a good friend of ours, Umar Ashraf. He's like, and I said this before we came on, is like, he's like the top G, if you will, of our industry. Like, he is the top example of that in our industry, because someone who shows their brokerage statements every year of what they made to that point, shares the reality of what he had to go through when learning to get to that point, and doesn't just sugarcoat as if like, and he could, if he wanted to, he could literally do anything he want, like say anything he wanted and show it. Could do the lifestyle if he wanted to, but instead he focuses on business and focuses on the reality of what trading is. So that's a prime example there. But just, yeah, that's what I would look out. So let's say you don't know trading at all and you're on social media and you see something, a post come up. That's what you got to look at. Like, what is the tonality of that post? Maybe that particular post is a little bit more, lifestyle-esque or a lifestyle sort of marketing, but that's fine. Okay, but look at the rest, right? Is that just the general tone? Is that just all there is? That just lifestyle and make money with me quick? I'll help you become rich. If that's the case, run a mile. Yeah, stay away from that. If, however, it's showing you, okay, that one's a lifestyle, but then the next post is talking about, okay, this is how you can learn. Here's some free information where to learn, or this is where to go learn, or here's a free resource. And as part of that, though, they're also showing that this isn't going to be a quick journey. This isn't going to be an easy journey, right? That's where you're getting a bit more reality. Don't get me wrong, there are people who probably do that who also maybe not the best, but at least they're trying to show a true picture of trading. And I think it's very important to do that because it's the same principle with me. Like, I was trying to get into business thinking business is easy, right? And I feel like that's why podcasts have been very popular and very helpful because you show the reality. Like you hear a Joe Rogan podcast, or hear anyone on a podcast, they're actually then able to go beyond a 60-second clip or
deep dive into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Instagram was an issue before, and just social media as a whole was an issue before because it's like a highlight reel, right? It's like everyone's wins. It's like the trophy cabinet essentially. So then when you look at it, you think business is fantastic and easy because look, this is all you see. It's just easiness and success and happiness and lifestyle and greatness. When in reality, to do that, you have to reach those. You have to gamble the rent money. You have to humble yourself. You have to go through the trauma of getting your dad's shop and failing. You have to go through these things. You have to struggle. And you have to do the 30, 40 episodes of the podcast and not get anywhere and not see any traction. You have to go through that to learn and to grow and to build the momentum and just understand that I think less so than looking at trading or what to avoid is just understand that in any industry there is no get rich quick, there is no easy success, right? It does not exist. Even like these crypto people that people talk about and try and refer to, like, oh, that guy made loads of money in crypto. Think about it though, the people who made like the big bucks in crypto got in early, right? And people say they're lucky, but they have to take a risk. At the end of the day, they took a huge risk. Yeah. No one believed in Bitcoin like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was a joke.
But they did.
Yeah.
Right? And they were willing to put some decent money in there to then, and hold it most of all, right?
The long term.
Exactly.
Not the 1 year long term, the actual long term.
And to do that is hard.
Yeah.
So like, it still wasn't easy for them. I'm sure they probably made some mistakes along the way. I'm sure they probably did some investments before that one that failed, right? But again, people just don't see it. They just look at the surface. And I think it's the same with trading, right? If you just look at the surface, it looks easy. If you just look at podcasting on the surface, it looks easy, right? Just two people talking. But there's so much more that goes into it, right? And people don't understand the investment it takes to continue to build it, right? You might get successful at it. You might have 1 or 2 episodes that blow up, but how do you consistently do that? That's the hard bit.
Yeah, literally off the back of that.
But I do truly believe we're in an age where everyone does, a lot of people, should I say, they do want to get involved in social media, right? Yeah. They want to build a presence. They want to build a brand, right? I know, like I said, a lot of family, that's where, when I was talking about businesses and stuff like that, a lot of family and friends, they do that all the time. They say to me, I'm going to start a page on this. Most of them don't ever do it. Some of them do. And when they do it for a month or 2. Just when they probably might start to see any sort of result, they quit. And then they wait for 2-3 months, or life takes over. And that is a trick. Don't get me wrong. Like, all of us go through stuff, right? We all go through hardship. We all have, things that happen, deaths in the family, we get ill, a family member gets ill, stresses at work, stresses in the business, whatever it may be. There's always going to be something that is going to creep up on you. You can't allow that to stop you from doing what you need to do. You can't let that momentum slow down. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit there and say like, oh, someone died in the family, keep trading, right? That's crazy, right? But if someone died in the family, give the time necessary. Let's say you're at the moment when that happens, you were giving 80% to trading and 20% elsewhere. Cut that down to 20% here for the time being. Yeah. But you keep the momentum going. And that's in anything. Because that's the only way you're going to see results, because you're always going to be tested. I always said like the world is set up as a scam. That sounds the Matrix, if you will. It's like they're scamming us, right? That's a big statement to make. How? And I've always done it like this. I've always said, look at the calendar, right? The calendar, the 12 months that we have. And you'll find every month at the minimum, normally every maybe even 3 weeks nowadays, there's an event that is going to take you off guard. There's a bank holiday. There's an event to spend money on. There's an event that you're going to take your eye off the ball, and just, start relaxing. Always. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, your birthday, Eid, Christmas, Easter, New Year's. They make them up.
Yeah.
They Black Friday, they just make it up. Cyber Monday is out of nowhere, right? Nowadays they got also like Book Day and Father, I think Sibling Day,
random ones, literally.
everything, right? And they just make these things up Because why? Like, what is the average person doing? They're living for the weekend already, right? They're already living on the weekend. And even as traders, though, it's the same principle, right? So many traders, they trade Monday to Friday, fantastic. But they break all their momentum on the weekend. Because, yeah, the markets might be closed on the weekend, so they can't trade, but you still need to do something. Review your trades. Look at what happened the previous week. Forecast what's going to happen in the next week, right? Watch some videos to learn, a podcast, whatever. Keep the momentum going. Because that restful period takes you out, that sharpness
Takes you off your ball, yeah.
Takes you off the ball, yeah? And then you start to slip up. You start to get emotional. You start to fall into old habits, whatever it may be. And it's that same principle there, let alone anything else. Social media is the biggest one. You have to be consistent. Like, anyone who takes a break from social media, they just setting that you have to start a new account, I would say.
Yeah.
Right, for the most part. You have to start a new account, because you'll notice that when people do take prolonged breaks, the results aren't the same when they come back, even if they're doing the exact same thing, even if they are consistent when they get back. And but I think social media, I say to people all the time, social media, if you build a personal brand, you can monetize that brand, which is an incredible thing. Like, you can really monetize it at a very high level and have that freedom you want. But it's the same principle we talked about earlier. Monetize in an ethical way, right? Don't just monetize because you can. That's what these guys are doing. All these influencers, that's what they're doing just because they can and because it's easy. But just do it in an ethical way. There are many ways. Like, a lot of these guys could have chosen to do anything else. But let's be honest, some of them might just not have the business acumen or the work rate to do it.
So,
they might have done something really good in something else.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But they just don't know how to translate it. And that's the difference though. Like, someone might be a good influencer, like in terms of content, but they're not a good business person. So therefore, this sort of opportunity where it's like, look, you just post, you do your thing in terms of content creation, I'll pay you crazy amounts of money. That's it. Yeah. That's all that. Then that person's just thinking, I'm just making content. That's in their mind. That's probably how they get away with it. And that's probably how they trick themselves into thinking it's fine. But you just gotta be mindful of like what, because I get offers all the time. You can imagine I get emails. I'm sure you get it all the time as well. Like, I get emails all the time from all these different brokerages, all these different signal groups, all these different like random things I've never heard of, or especially like all these random games. Like this, and I think it's a fake email.
No, we get loads of the fake emails ones.
I can imagine. Yeah, they're like, we'll give you $500. You just do a 1 minute ad read, and I'm like, I've never even heard of this. What is it? But like, I turn down offers all the time, like, especially brokerage. Like, brokers throw big money at the podcast, right? It's true though. This is what I was going to say earlier about the whole story thing, is that everyone has a story. That's the beauty of the pod, is that everyone does have a story. Some are worse than others in terms of they started lower than others, but everyone has a low moment, and everyone has that low thing in their life. And usually, and the only reason that is because then they wouldn't have a story. Let's say if someone started here, their low moment normally comes later in life.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right? Because they're not experienced at a young age, so then they end up making mistakes or being naive to certain things. So then when it happens later in life, it actually hurts more for the most part. But yeah, for me, I was addicted to weed at the time. And at the time I thought it was cool. Honestly, I thought like it was cool me telling people I smoke this much weed, I can smoke this much weed. Like, I thought it was a cool thing. Like, I'm a Snoop Dogg type guy, you know what I mean? And it's just not cool.
I don't get high until I have 10 zoots sort of thing.
Exactly. I was exactly that type of guy. And it was really bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here like weed is terrible for everyone. Like, there are people who smoke weed and they operate at a high level. I'm just not one of them. Like, when I smoked weed, and I think for the majority of people, and again, this is what we were talking about earlier, like, don't look at the enigma, the one guy who does smoke loads of weed and then, is very successful. Look at the most people, right? The most people are smoking a lot of weed and they're not getting anywhere, right? And they're just dumbing their brain down, which I was doing. And so yeah, I was literally smoking weed for a good year like that, very hard, 2 years, very hard like that. And I was just around other people doing the exact same thing. And it's not their fault, right? That's what their choice is. And I chose to be around them. But all my decisions I was making was based off smoking weed. So my friends were based off who else smoked weed. The things I would do was based off, would I be able to smoke weed and be able to go do those things?
Yeah.
Right? So it was a really bad mindset to have. And this is at the beginning of the trading as well, when I came across trading. So again, that year and a half where I didn't really put in much work, probably because of the weed. Again, action, obviously, I'm self-accountable. You have to take action yourself. But that was the sort of fog I was in. And I remember there was a moment, and I was around these group of lads. There was about 15, 20 of them. That they all knew each other for a long time. I kind of just came into the group. And I used to say to them, they used to party all the time. They used to go clubbing and stuff, and every sort of weekend on the student nights and all that. But none of them were students, which was weird. But it was a really confusing time. But I said to them, like, I remember, because I still had the mindset, right? I still had the mindset, wanted to be an entrepreneur, etc. So I used to say to them, like, occasionally, like, oh, look, there's a good group of lads here, 10, 15 of us. Why don't we all work hard at something? And then, once a month or when we have something to celebrate, we can go out and we can chill. And I used to say it all the time. They'd be like, yeah. then we'll just go back to just smoking weed and just
back
dossing
to the
off.
same old routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I remember I went to UFC 205, November the 6th, I want to say, or 5th or 7th, around that sort of time, 2016. Conor McGregor versus Alvarez, right? When he won the second champion. You know, the iconic line when he goes, I want to take this moment to apologize.
Yeah.
To absolutely nobody. Yeah. That moment changed my life, man. Like, because I was there and I remember sitting there and I was at the nosebleeds, right? I was at the nosebleeds. I was high up, but it was still an incredible atmosphere, Madison Square Garden. I remember I was sitting there, standing there, and I was like, if I'm here right now, if I work hard, and if I wanted to, but if I work hard and I make something of myself, I can sit down there, cage side, right? I could be in the cage if that's a goal I have. I could do anything, especially because Conor had just gone through this journey of doing the whole visualization, putting in the work, and then that was probably the peak of his fighting career, right? The double champ moment. And I remember being in that moment, just thinking, very profound, like sitting there going, I could do that. So literally, I remember going home from that trip and I went to them boys. I said, I'm quitting weed. I'm done. Like, I'm not doing it no more. Right. And then they all started doing these comments of like, you're getting religious and you're serious and all this sort of thing. Right. And then I just had to cut them off. Right. And it's not because necessarily they're bad people. Right. They were just doing their decisions and whatever. They were living their life. And who am I to tell them how they should live that life? But they were bad for me. Right. They weren't aligned with my vision. And I think there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, who are in that same position where they're around other people because of certain things, not because they necessarily want to be, or not because they necessarily think they're actually good people for them. And I would say to those people, always just step away. Don't be afraid of solitude. Like I spent a good, 6 to 9 months after that just by myself, you know, and not meaning like literally no one. I had my family. I had other friends I could speak to, but in terms of like chilling on a day to day, etc., I just spent time by myself.
Well, sometimes them changes are that, like in your case, I can say, you know, it's the best things that can happen to you.
100%.
Best things that you can do. So in that fear of people being lonely and stepping away from the people, out of the fear, do it and just see where it ends up, because you will end up way further than you could ever have imagined. Now you can 100% go to MSG, ringside, or, you know, cage side, whatever the case is, because simply of that one decision right there.
Exactly. It's so powerful, because I took just a really small point, but I used to watch these roundtables with actors on. I can't remember who hosts them, but it's like it's hosted by like Universal or something. But it'd be like Robert De Niro and Robert Downey Jr. and like, you know, just these big actors would sit on a roundtable and it's essentially a podcast.
Yeah.
But I remember all like the common theme when you hear them all talk. Bear in mind, these are big players. Denzel Washington, all of them, like these big players, right? They all say like, when they started, and even to this day, a lot of them would say as well, especially when they do stage stuff, so like plays rather than actual, you know, filming, they still have fear. They're still scared to go out there. They're still scared to go through that process. Look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, the king, right? The heavyweight champ of the world, was scared when he would walk to the ring, right? And they were all basically saying though, like, on the other side of fear is what you want. Like the fear is there, and if you don't overcome that, you will never get to where you want to be. And I remember that always stuck with me. And I remember there was another saying where it's like, if things feel chaotic and they feel a bit out of control, a bit crazy, it's a good thing, because it means you're actually trying to do something. You're trying to progress, right? Versus if everything's calm, what does that mean? That means you're probably not doing nothing. Like, you're not trying to do anything worth doing. And those things always stuck with me, of like, especially in the moments, even like to this day, I still get stressed out. Like last week we had a death in the family. I've got obviously my kids. I've got obviously the podcast, the new channel coming, Cold Chart is coming, new business deals to be done. Whilst I'm running the podcast still, uploading and schedule, all that's happening at once, right? And it felt very chaotic, I remember. But I just sit there and I think, one, I'm blessed to do this in the first place, right? Secondly, I chose to do this. And that's a big thing as well. It's like you chose this life. It's like trading, the same thing. Like, you know, you chose, like if you experience a loss and you get all annoyed or whatever, you chose this life though. Losing is guaranteed in trading. So how can you get annoyed, right? Same with this, like it's chaotic right now. That's fine. You chose, you know, it's the life you chose. It's part of the game. It's part of this. And you have to get used to it, right? And you just have to accept it, right? And again, just divert attention wherever necessary for that period of time. Things will smooth out. But life is always like that. It doesn't matter how rich you are. Look, Andrew Tate, he made so much success. He built his brand, so much money. Of course, there's going to be these moments.
Yeah, 100%,
you know? His was a lot harder, but notice the match though. It's something I call the law. Well, I don't call it. It's the law of polarity. It's like a universal law. It's like for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So he had all this success, and then he had to unfortunately experience this really down moment where maybe you could say it was equal.
It's got to balance out basically.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just accepting that. It's just accepting that, okay, you're going to have these highs, you're going to have these lows, but the lows lead you to the highs. Sometimes the highs end up leading you to the lows.
Yeah.
And that was always a powerful lesson for me that I learned early on, thankfully. At the end of the day, even with us having quite a niche in terms of trading, I need to get trading value. I need to really extract trading value to the audience, not just the trader's journey, right? I need the value to the audience. So 100% need to be in tune. But equally, I had to make a change. So that's what the point I was getting to. I still do trade, but I just trade differently now. So now I trade swing trading, day trading. So essentially it's longer term. So I don't need to be on the charts every single day. I'm trying to hold trades for days, if not weeks. So then I don't have to sit there and manage it. I just get in the trade, set it, and then leave it. Let it play out. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. And I was going to say, have you got my phone? Let me show you. I feel like I'm doing a Switzy now. But so like this is FTMO, so that's an evaluation firm. So I'm funded with, and so for this last week, this is in dollars.
Well, we're looking at the bottom figure.
The bottom figure, yeah.
And this is your overall earnings, basically.
Exactly, yeah. For the last week, I made $10,000.
Yeah.
I get an 80% split, so that would be $8,000. So pounds, about £6,000, right? That's in a week. And I'm not saying that to boast or anything. What I'm saying is, if let's say the podcast and all that went away, that's the beauty of trading and the skill set is that I can still have that skill set. I can still make 6,000 in a week, which is more than enough for a whole month, right? Obviously it depends on your expenses, but let's say if I was just doing normal life, not traveling and all this crazy stuff, that would be more than enough.
Yeah.
Right?
The way I look at it is trading seems like for you anyway, a very good way to have cash flow to do the podcast. For example, traveling to Dubai, New York, Miami, wherever you've been, like in the beginning phase of podcasting might not pay for them overheads.
100%.
Yeah. But trading can. And so it just means that you're trading, you get the content, and it allows you to grow the podcast to the next level.
Exactly. So like originally that was what it was. So the trading helped me to obviously sustain the podcast.
Yeah.
The studio time, the rentals, the editing costs, etc. But then once it grew to a certain amount, the trading sort of sponsorship and the businesses I created off the back of it really excelled, right? And now that covers all that. So now trading really is just a hobby. That's the truth. Like trading is like, because I enjoy it. I have a passion for it. I don't mind if I lose and I don't mind if I win. I think you need that mentality anyway. Obviously you want to win, but if you bring that sort of desperation to the markets, it's not going to end well. But yeah, so like now it's just like hobby. So with that sort of money, I would probably just use it for a holiday or to spend it on the family or just save it. I'm not needing trading. And I think that's important though. I really do. Like, I understand that people a lot of the time, they come across these things, whether it's trading or e-commerce or any of these sort of things, especially trading though, I'd say, like trading in crypto and NFTs or any of that sort of stuff, is you want to have savings. You need to have savings. I would say you'd want to have a decent income before you even do it, because all that happens if you don't have any of those two things is you trade from desperation and then you just fall into big gambling. Yeah. Right? Because now you need money. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Like I used to say, like, if you want to get into trading for just the money or for money, then you shouldn't trade. Right? But at the end of the day, what is we all doing anything for? We're all doing it because we want to make some money, of course, and have that freedom. But there has to be passion there too. So like, I get it that you get into trading for money, but just understand, like, if you don't have money, don't throw money into trading. Because it's not going to work. Don't look at these people saying online, like we'd already talked about, like showing this crazy, unrealistic expectation. But equally, don't look at the person who might be legit, who did put in £1,000 and flip it to 100,000. Because that one guy did it maybe one time. And the reality is, if he kept going, he would have blown it all anyway. Because that's how it works. So yeah, like having an income helps your trading. The peace of mind you have is much higher when you have some form of income, or at least savings. Yeah. So I would always say that to people, and trading in particular is like that, because obviously you put money on the line. While yes, you don't have employees or staff and stuff, you have to put that money on the line, and then you have to manage that money with extreme discipline, which most people aren't anyway, and have emotional control, which most people aren't anyway, unfortunately. While with these other ventures, you might have to get employees or have to pitch your services, or you might have some overheads or like maybe a warehouse, but they're fixed. You know that, okay, this is going to cost me £100 a month, and I need to make sure I have £100 to pay that. Versus trading, you don't know if you're going to lose £1,000 or if you're going to make 50k, you know? And that never changes though. No matter how good you are, that element doesn't change. You can never guarantee your income. So the best traders create businesses. you know, whether it's within the trading niche or outside of it, or they get investments that pay them dividends that is fixed, that then allows to take that edge off, you know, that need to make money. So the real traders, I would say, is that they don't, a lot of the big time traders, right, they make a large amount of money in a short period of time and they normally retire, right? That's their career. They made, you know, they really sized in on the right trades, made millions, and they normally retire or slow down massively, right? And go and invest that money. The ones who do it longer term, maybe because of the passion, is they use that money to invest into businesses.
Yeah,
they
build
use that money
wealth,
to create. Yes.
literally, yeah. As I said last week, we had Yurimi on the podcast. You know, he's building all this wealth for him to do the Airbnb business, wherever it may be. Yeah, I remember he said he's got Umrah business, I believe, and a few other things as well. And I even asked him, you know, it's like a way to build wealth to fund these projects.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't ask I can't remember if I asked if trading has this podcast was filmed a while ago, so I can't remember what the conversation was. But it was like, it's a way to build wealth, basically, yeah. Long story short, and behold. Interested to know from you, Riz, what's your CPM on YouTube?
CPM, that is a good question. It changes sometimes, but on average, I believe it's about 18. So what the total is about 18 to 20. Sometimes it can go up to like 25, 30.
That's
the
the
financial niche.
Literally, financial industry, for people who don't understand, financial industry on YouTube, killing it.
Massive, yeah, it is huge.
One special question, which is, what does success mean to you?
Success means to me, I think success really is being happy with yourself. I think doing things you enjoy, but at a high level, right? So I think, though I wouldn't say money is success, but normally when you do things at a high level and you do things you enjoy, money is a byproduct and comes along. So I'd say like living in peace, you know, living, you know, where you're not looking over your shoulder, you're not worried about anything, you've done everything with good intention, you've worked hard, you've built something. And I think success really is when you have a legacy of some kind. Growing up, because of the thing with my father, I used to always think legacy meant, you know, in the history books, you know. I used to always think like Marcus Aurelius, you know, a guy who was here 2,000 years ago, we're still saying his name, that's legacy, you know. I used to think like that, like you have to really get into the history books. And that's something that's really hard to do, right? And it's a great thing to strive towards for sure, but legacy really is just leaving an impact on people. So that's why I love the podcast. Like the amount of the legacy I'm leaving with the podcast alone is incredible, because it's touching so many people's lives. It's helping people. It might be helping them with their trading, or it might be helping them just with their mindset, or just to believe in themselves. And that alone is incredible. And I think really success for me is like the impact you have even after you're gone. So like the things that you do in this life have been that impactful, even if it's on a small, forget podcast, even if it's like just your family members and friends and people who knew you go after you're dead as well. Like with my dad, if I meet people who knew my dad now, they say the same thing. And this is like 27 years later, and he wasn't a famous person. He wasn't a well-known person. He was an immigrant, right, in the UK. But yeah, people, if I go to the shop in the surrounding area, people will say, that guy, you know, he's a great guy. He had good, and always positive, always helpful.
He left a legacy.
That's it. Yeah. And to me, that's success. Like, what more could you ask for? You know, even if you have no money, but you've left a legacy or an impact in that way, amazing. If you've had money and left an even bigger one, right, and you made something for yourself and you built some foundations or just had an even bigger impact, absolutely incredible, you know. But either one is just success.
Riz, where can people find you on socials?
I'm everywhere. I
know.
Mainly YouTube, Instagram. I don't like TikTok, you know. I'm not a big fan of TikTok. I still post there here and there.
Yeah.
But I just don't get the algo there.
Yeah, no, same.
It's so different. You know what I did? I'll tell you a funny story before I go. Is I just, as a test, I was like, okay, TikTok, I need to try and get this, yeah? I did a clip where I put like a GTA driving scene underneath, yeah?
Oh yeah, I tried the same thing, yeah.
But I posted it on Instagram and YouTube as well. And my audience started ripping me. They were like, do you think we're kids? Do you think we have no attention? Right? And I was like, hey man, I was just testing it out, I'm sorry. But yeah, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter will be the best places.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. That's a good question. Words of Wisdom on YouTube, Words of Wisdom on Instagram, and I think it's like Words of _Wisdom maybe, or something like that on
TikTok.
Twitter.
It'll all be in the description anyway.
Thank you. You can tell I don't do this often.
Yeah, you do. I'm not a podcaster saying I don't do this often. Oh, the guest side of things. Yeah. Makes sense. Well, guys, Riz, appreciate that, my bro. Appreciate it.